Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahmavidar. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranashchakshushrotramatho Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahmopanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Ma Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranamastu Anirakaranam Me Astu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu Dharmaha Temai Santo Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so last week we didn't have class, so I'm just going to recap a little bit so that our minds are on the same page. Now, what was established so far is that existence is reality. Existence is reality. It is the truth, the essence of the world. Because if we break everything down to its minutest, the substratum of it is existence. It's the common denominator amidst everything. And that existence also is a changeless presence. It's changeless in the 3 periods of time, and it is beyond time. Now, what was established last class is that existence is also consciousness. So one might think, he said, Sadeva Somya Idam Agra Asid. This world was nothing but existence alone. But some might question, is that existence inert? So when he goes through here these mantras, so for example, now we're on the 2nd chapter, just reviewing. And if we go to mantra number 3, the 2nd chapter, he says, Tad Aikshata, that Sat visualized. And what did that Sat visualize? Bahusyam prajaye yeti. May I become many. And so by saying that Sat visualized, it's bringing in Chit. That actually that existence is pure awareness. And that existence with pure awareness and the power of Maya, and through the power of Maya, manifested this whole world. So we also went through Maya, so I'm not going to go through that again. Tejaha asrijat. Then fire was born. So you have existence, which is pure awareness with the power of Maya, and fire was born, or fire was manifested. And all of that put together said that fire said, Tat tejo aikshata. May I become many. The fire said, may I become many. And so now water came about. And so whenever there's heat, there's water. Whenever somebody sweats, there's water drops. Whenever there's the heat of grief, there's teardrops. And water also visualized and said, may I become many. And then earth came about. And so whenever there's rain, lots of abundance of rain, we see crops growing or food, nourishment. And so in this way, these subtle elements, or what we call tanmatras, manifested: fire, water, and earth. Now the question came last time, and this is in the Purva Paksha, the objector said, when you say existence visualized, maybe you're just saying it in a secondary sense. Like we say, the building collapsed. It's an inert object and it's doing an action. Like the sun is shining. It's an inert object and it's doing an action. So maybe sat, or existence visualizing, is just a secondary sense. And the answer was no, because in this Upanishad, it says that sat, that existence, is the very self. That satyam sa atma, that existence is the very self. And the very self is consciousness. So that existence has to be consciousness, because Upanishads equate the two. And then the objector says, well, maybe the self that it's referring to is not this pure consciousness or awareness. Maybe it's just, like I take my phone to be myself, or my car to be myself, or my house to be myself. That is me. So maybe it's in a secondary sense. And then the Siddhantin, or the Vedantin, says no, because whoever realizes that that existence is this consciousness attains liberation. And liberation is through abidance in existence consciousness. It's not through abidance in matter. We've been abiding in matter for a long time and we're not liberated. We're abiding in our body for a long time. We're not liberated. We're abiding in our mind for a long time. We're not liberated. So abidance in consciousness, in existence, that's what gives liberation. And besides, in the Upanishad, it said, Uddalaka Rishi told Shwetaketu, do you know that by which the one thing is known and everything is known? Do you know that by which one thing is known and everything is known? So therefore, if we know existence, then that means everything is known. That means I am also known. And if by knowing existence, everything is known, including I am awareness. Therefore, this existence must be awareness, because by knowing existence, everything is known. So awareness is also known. So therefore, existence is awareness. That Sat is also Chit, in the line of thinking of the Upanishads. So now we go forth today with the third chapter. So we are on Tritiya Kanda, the first mantra, third chapter, first mantra. I'll chant the mantra and you can repeat in your homes and then I'll explain. Tesham kalvesham bhutanam, Tesham kalvesham bhutanam, Trinyeva bijani bhavanti, Trinyeva bijani bhavanti, Andajam jīvajam udbhijam iti, Andajam jīvajam udbhijam iti. So here it says now, Tesham. Tesham means of these aforesaid beings, right? Of these bodies, what happens? Trini eva khalu. Three only, bijani. Three only are the origins. Bhavanti, there are three of them. Andajam, those that are born from eggs. Jīvajam, born from living beings. Udbijam, born from sprouts or seeds. So the idea is now he's just telling us what's going to come about. When this world comes to be, he says, of all of the beings that come in this world, they only have three bijas, three sources. One, born of eggs. Andajam. Anda means egg. Ja, born out of eggs. So these are like reptiles, fish, etc. So one set of beings is born out of eggs. Then jīva. Another set of beings is born from the womb, like mammals, like humans, they're born from the wombs. And the next one is udbijam. Udbijam means born from earth. So like that which breaks the ground and is born, like plants and trees. So we'll find that all beings have these three origins. In some places, it's also said Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya literally means born from sweat. But this you can include in these three. So he's just going, in this mantra, in the third section, mantra 1, he's just giving us a kind of overview of what's going to happen and how the world is going to come about. Now, in this next mantra, this is where we will spend most of the time, because this is where now the concept gets a little bit deeper. So third chapter, mantra 2. Saiyam devata, aikshata, aham ima tisro devataha, anena jivena atmana anupravishya, namarupe vyakarvaniti. So now he's going back to the topic. Sa devata. Sa iyam devata. Here this refers to Sat, that existence, Sa iyam devata. And this is now referring to existence in the feminine gender. So the beauty about Sat is that it is feminine, it's masculine, it's neuter, it's everything. So now he's referring to it in the feminine gender. Sa iyam devata aikshat. This existence willed. Hanta. Hanta means now. Well, anena jivena atmana. Through this jiva. And we will explain what jiva is. Imaha tisraha devata. In these three devatas. Which are the three devatas? Fire, water, earth. So these will keep coming. So just remember FWE, fire, water, earth. Anupravishya, entering them. Name-rupe, name and form, vyakarvani. Name and form will become manifest. That deity willed, well, let me, entering into these three deities, through this living self, manifest name and form. Okay. So I'm just going to give you the concept of what's going to come about, and then we'll see it in detail. The idea here in this is called Pravesha Shruti, or the Shruti, the Veda of entering. We all know and we all have studied that this world is pure consciousness, pure awareness. And everything that comes out of it is only consciousness. Everything is consciousness. But here in this particular mantra, it talks about entry of consciousness into beings. Why? Because although consciousness is already present, it's already there, this entry is to show that that consciousness is becoming manifest. It's becoming manifest. For example, electricity is always there. But when we turn on the light bulb, it becomes manifest. Electricity is always there, but when we turn on the fan, it becomes manifest. So here the entry is the manifestation of consciousness as jīva. Jīva, the reflection of consciousness, or chidabhasa. That consciousness becomes now manifest in the mind. This is called entry. So now we look at the commentary and see everything in detail. So that Sat, which is the prakrita, which is the topic, sat existence, which is tejo banna yoni, which is the womb of fire, water, earth. That sat, aikshata. Aikshata means visualized, willed, to show again that this existence is consciousness. It's bringing that word. And how did it visualize? How did it will? Yatha purva, just like before. Just like before, it says, Bahusyam prajaye mahi. May I become many. That's how it willed. And if we notice in our lives, this will keeps happening. This desire, may I become many, pervades in and through our lives, isn't it? Our money, may I become many. May that money become many. May my profits become many. May our following become many. May our registrations become many. May our children become many, right? In all aspects of our life, our innate desire is, may I become many. May I multiply. So if you take a company like Apple, may I become many. So iPhone and iPad and then iMac and AirPods. This is in our Upanishads. This is our desire. Our desire is for plurality. We want to make ourselves manifold. And so this existence willed, may I become many. Katham, how? Hanta, like hanta means now. Let me enter into these three devatas as the jīva. Now, a purva paksha or an objection comes, right? He says here, Nanu na yuktam idam asamsarimyaha sarvajnyaha devatayaha buddhi purvakam. He says, this is not appropriate. It's not appropriate for that Brahman, that ultimate consciousness, to enter into our beings. It's really not appropriate, because that pure awareness, that pure consciousness is so untouched, is so detached. And then when it enters into our beings, our being is aneka shata sahasra anartha ashraya, means it is this abode of so many troubles and problems. So if you're saying that this pure existence consciousness enters into our beings, we have so many issues and so many problems. And therefore, dukkham anubhavishyami, won't that existence consciousness feel that I'm going through sorrow now that I've entered into this being? What kind of thing is this? This is not appropriate. And so the Vedantin says, Satyam eva. This is true. Na yuktam. It is not appropriate. And it says, Swena eva avikritena rupena anupravishya. So it says that here, it's not that consciousness changes or transforms, and not that consciousness itself comes into our beings. Not that consciousness itself comes into our beings. How? Anena jivena atmana anupravishya. It says that it is only the reflection of consciousness that enters into our beings. So not that consciousness per se comes into our beings, the reflection of consciousness enters into our beings. What is this reflection of consciousness? Jīva. Jīvo hi nama devatayaha abhasa matram. The jīva is called the reflection of consciousness. Buddhyadi bhuta matra samsarga janita. So just by the presence of consciousness, the reflection gets enlivened in our beings. And he gives examples here. Let us take first the mirror example. This is actually also given here in the Bhashya, in the commentary, that in the mirror example, there's the original consciousness, let us say my face. Then there is the mirror, and there's the reflection of consciousness. Correct? So by my mere presence, the reflection is there in the mirror. There's no contact between me and the mirror. There's no contact between me and the reflection. No contact whatsoever. So the entry of consciousness into the jīva is one of no contact. It is just like by my mere presence here, my reflection is there in the mirror. That is called entry. And that is how we are enlivened with consciousness. The same example he gives, just like the sun. Just like the sun is reflected in a body of water. And in that body of water, you see the water and you see the sun there. There's no contact between the sun and the water, or the sun and the reflection of the sun. There's absolutely no contact. So this is called entry. And he says here that there is no reflection, but because we feel, because we think that we are the reflection, it says buddhyadi sambandha Chaitanya bhasa devata swarupa viveka agrahana nimitta sukhi dukhi moodha ityadi aneka vikalpa pratyaya hetu. Because we identify with that reflection, that's where all of our sorrows start. So the viveka, or the discernment now in this mantra particular, is deeper. It's not that I'm not the body or I'm not the mind here. It's so deep that I'm not this ego. There's this reflection of consciousness and consciousness, and I am not this reflection of consciousness. I am not this ego at all. And if I identify with this ego, then I take everything on with me. But if I disidentify with this ego, then I can remain as the pure self. There's no problem at all. Then he says here, now he brings all of these Upanishad quotes, and he asks this question. The objector asks this question. Nanu chaya matra chet jīva mrisha. So is it that this jīva, this reflection of consciousness, is it that this jīva is actually false? And the answer is jīva on its own is false. But jīva as Atma, as Brahman, is true. So the bracelet as the bracelet is false, but the bracelet as gold is true. So what he's trying to tell us is that entry, please don't think that there is a contact here. Please don't think that consciousness or Brahman became jīva. That Brahman never became jīva, and therefore the jīva will never become Brahman. Brahman is as Brahman is. Just that mere reflection has entered into our being, and that's how we are enlivened. That's how we are enlivened. It's not, not that we're enlivened by anything else. And because of that, we are so identified with the reflection that we forget our origin. And because this jīva is false, then the whole thing that belongs to jīva, or that individuality, or that ego, is also false. So that bondage which belongs to that jīva is false. That liberation which belongs to that jīva is also false. So everything that belongs to that jīva is completely false. And therefore, that is the entry. Now, to elaborate this a little further, I want to take up here 2 verses from Drigdrishya Viveka, just to really understand this jīva. I want to take up 2 verses, because once these concepts are very clear, then there will be no doubts. So I'm going to take up verses 8 and 9. I'll read them and I'll explain. Ahankarasya tadatmyam Chichayateha sakshibihi sahajam karmajam bhranti janyam chatrividham krama. So here it says, our ahankara, okay? Our ahankara, our ego, has three relationships. The first one is with the reflection of consciousness. So now here, bring the mirror example. The mirror, let's say, is the mind, intellect, ego equipment. And the reflection is what we call the jīva or chidabhasa. Right? So automatic, this relationship is called sahajam because it's so natural. Whenever you have an original face, you have a mirror surface, there's going to be a reflection of consciousness. This we cannot help. This is called sahajam. This happens. And the ego also has a relationship with the body. The relationship with the body is called karmajam. Karmajam means it's born of karma. So it automatically, it identifies with the body that it has. So right now, it will identify with this body. After this birth, it will get another body, and then another body, and it will identify with that. Now, what is the relationship between reflection of consciousness and pure consciousness? It is said, Bhranti Janyam. It is one of error. There's actually no relationship. There's no relationship because that ego, that mind is illumined by consciousness. So there's no relationship at all. And now the goal of Vedanta is to slowly cut that relationship, detach ourselves from that relationship with this ego. So he says there are three ways now to cut it or to let go of that. Ego has to let go of these three relationships. So I'll read this. Sambandito stitor nasti nivritti sahajasya tu karma kshayat prabodhacha nivartete kramadubhi. The relationship between the ego and the reflected consciousness, that is natural. As long as we have body, as long as we have the mind, the ego will be there. The ego will be there as long as the body is there, as long as the mind is there. The ego will be there. That cannot go. So that is natural. Nivritti sahajasyatu means it cannot go. The connection between the ego and karma, that can only go karma kshayat, when the karma is finished, when the karma of the body is over, then that ego, the connection of the ego and the body, it's done. Now the connection between ego and the self, when does that go? Prabodhat. That goes only when knowledge dawns. Because there's actually no connection. The knowledge is that there was never a connection anyway. So to bring all of this into perspective now, to look at this mantra, he says that this Sat visualized, said, I need to enter into these beings. Into where? Fire, water, earth. And how do I enter? I enter as a reflection of consciousness. Means consciousness remains untouched. I enter as a reflection of consciousness, just as by me being here, the mirror is there, the reflection enters very naturally. And what happens when we do that? Nama rupe vyakaravani iti means it multiplies into various names and forms. So this is the effortless manifestation of creation. So you notice that nothing is actually done. There's no actual doing. It's just happening. Nama rupe vyakaravani. Okay. Now, what happens after this? So we'll go now into mantra number 3. Tasam trivritam eikaikam karavaniti. Tasam trivritam eikaikam karavaniti. Sayam devata imaha tisro devataha. Sayam devata imaha tisro devataha. Aneneva jivena Atmana anupravishya namarupe vyakarot. So now what he does, what does that sat do? Tasam. So tasam, of these 3 deities, ekaikam trivritam karvani. So of these 3 deities, let me make each one threefold. So first it was subtle. First it was subtle and pure fire, pure water, pure earth. Now he says, let me make these threefold, triplicate. And so, sa iyam devata, this deity, imaha tisro devata, into this deity sat, into these 3 deities, fire, water, earth, trivritam bhavati. Each one becomes threefold. How anena jivena atmana anupravishya. Through that, again, that reflection of consciousness entering namarupe vyakarot. So first, let's read the 4th one also, and then we can take that together. Tasam trivritam eikaikam akarod. Tasam trivritam eikaikam akarod. Yatha tu khalu somya imaha tisro devataha trivrit eikaika bhavati tanme vijanihi. So he says, now this, instead of translating, I'm going to just explain the chart in the book, because that will be easier to understand. So the idea is, first, the creation is subtle, and now it becomes grossified. So when it becomes grossified, there's fire, there's water, there's earth, as you can see in your book, page 29. Then this process, the fire splits into 2. Water splits into 2, and earth splits into 2. Okay? Then that fire, 50% of fire, combines with 25% of water, 25% of earth. So this is the grossification process. Then 50% of water combines with 25% of fire and 25% of earth. Then 50% of earth combines with 25% of fire and 25% of water. So now what we have is the elements were in their subtlest forms, and now they're gross. And in their gross forms, they're all combined together. So in fire, we have elements of water and earth. In water, there are elements of fire and earth. And in earth, there are elements of fire and water. So he says, of these, let me make each one threefold. And the deity, this Sat, entered into these 3 deities through his living self and manifested at various names and forms. And it made each one of them threefold. And then he's going to explain how these deities become threefold. Okay? So now let us go into that mantra, section 4. So just one point that I will explain here. Again, this is just an idea of how this manifestation is actually happening. It's something to hold our intellect, because otherwise we can't understand how this world multiplies. We can't understand. right? So this is called a prakriya. This is a methodology for us to sort of understand how this whole world becomes manifold. So in some Upanishads, we'll see as it is a panchikarana, means it comes from sat, existence, and then with maya, and then it comes from space, and then space, air, fire, water, earth. So in some Upanishads, it will come like that. In this Upanishad, it's just sat, chit, with the power of maya, and what comes then is fire, then water, then earth. This is the progression in this Upanishad. Then it's slowly going to break everything down, and then it's going to say the root cause of everything is sat. So let us first see, when we see one, then everything becomes clear. I'm going to read all of these just one time because it's the same thing again, okay? But we'll read one and then we'll explain. Section 4 now, the first mantra. Yad agnerohitam rupam tejasastad rupam yat shuklam tadapam yat krishnam tadannasya apagat agnehe agnitvam vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam trini rupanyetyeva satyam. So what he says here is, look at this, right? In the fire, yad agne. So first let us look at fire. Rohitam rupam. That red color of fire is fire. So in fire, you'll find different colors. That red color is fire. Then, yat shuklam tad apam. That which is white, that belongs to water. And yat krishnam tad annasya. That which is black, that belongs to food, to earth. And therefore, what happens? Apagat agnehe agnitvam. Then thus vanishes the idea of fire from fire, because vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam. Again, vacharambhanam, all is just based on speech. Namadheya, they're just all words. Only 3 forms are real. Huh? So when we look at fire, what is really fire? Huh? Fire is nothing but just that fire, water, earth. Fire of itself has no reality. If you just take that fire, you look at it, you think it's something real, it's something actually there. No, that red of fire belongs to fire. That white of fire belongs to water. That black of fire belongs to earth. And therefore, there is actually nothing called fire. It's like if we take, again, we'll bring this example of gold and the bracelet. If we take this example of bracelet, what is bracelet actually? What is bracelet actually? Its existence and names and forms, right? Now, if you pull out existence from there, there's really nothing there. There's really nothing there. It is just the name and form. It's just based on name and form. So once we extract the essence from something, then what remains is just based on speech. It's just vacharambhanam. It's just based on speech. Namadheya, it's only namesake. We take our entire being. We have our bodies, our minds, our personalities, everything here, our names, our jobs, our careers, our family, entire being. It feels like all of this is who I am. Extract existence from me. What happens? All of this is just namadheyam. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. If we extract existence and consciousness, there's nothing there, because everything just happens in our awareness. So what it's trying to say here, it will get to that this truth, this reality is the only reality, because nothing can exist without it. And everything else is just mere words. So the second one, yadadityasya rohitam rupam tejasastadrupam yat shuklam tadapam yat krishnam tadannasya apagat adityat adityatvam vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam trini rupani tyeva satyam. So it says here, now let's take the sun, right? In the sun, okay, rohitam rupam, that red in the sun is from fire. Rohitam rupam tejasas tadru. Yat shuklam tadapam, that white of the sun is from water. Yat krishnam tadannasya, that black from the sun is earth. And if we take out all of that, right, that's it vanishes, the idea of the sun from the sun. Apagat agne adityat adityatvam. Thus, you take out the whole idea of the sun, because the sun is just vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam. It's just namesake, because what comprises it is this fire, water, earth. What comprises it is these three things. And if you take out fire, you take out water, you take out earth, then that concept sun fails to exist. So again, we extract all of these things, that concept of anything, it fails to exist. Now he's going to go to the moon. Yat chandramaso rohitam rupam tejasastad rupam yat shuklam tadapam yat krishnam tadannasya apagat chandra chandratvam vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam trini rupani tyeva satyam. So again, he says here, now take the moon. In the moon, yat chandramasaha rohitam rupam, that which is red in the moon, tejasastad rupam, know that to be fire. Yat shuklam tadapam, that which is white, know that to be water. Yat krishnam tadannasya, that which is black, know that to be earth. Apaga chandra chandratvam. When you extract all of this, that idea of moon now is gone. And that moon is just vacharambhanam. It's just based on speech. Vikaro namadhyam. It's just namesake. Trini rupani tyeva satyam. Only fire, water, earth, only they are real. And later again in the text, it's going to be shown that even fire, water, and earth are not real. Then he says here, now we'll go to lightning. Yad vidyuto rohitam rupam tejasastad rupam yat shuklam tadapa yat krishnam tadannasya apagat vidyuto vidyutvam vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam trini rupani tyeva satyam. So now he's saying, take lightning. Yad vidyataha rohitam rupam, that which is red is tejas tadrupam, it's fire. Yat shuklam tadapa, that which is white is water. Yat krishnam tadannasya, that which is black is earth. And this way, if you extract all of that, apagat vidyuto vidyutvam, then that idea of lightning is gone. Vacharambhadam vikaro namadheyam. Everything is just based on speech. Trini rupani ityeva satyam. Only fire, water, earth, only these three are the reality. Now, let's just pause for a moment and see how to now think about what we have seen today so far in our practical daily life. So the first thing is that the first main thing we saw today is that there is this ego, which is there, this ego, which has this sahaja, very natural relationship with the reflection of consciousness. That together is called the jīva, that individuality. And that pure awareness actually has nothing to do with this individuality. whenever we take ourselves to be the ego, everything becomes wrong. I had given you this example before, that when we're typing in the computer, right? And we put our fingers on the computer. And if we don't start on A, S, D, F, and we start on other keys, then the whole thing becomes wrong. So the first mistake that we make is identifying ourselves as this jīva. And once we do that, the whole of the problems come to us. It's very difficult to control the body, to control the mind, because we take ourselves to be that. If we just understand that we are not this body, we are not this mind, it will be very easy to master. Because we are not the ones who are feeling this up and down. We're not the ones who are feeling this heat and cold. The minute we disidentify ourselves, then we understand our true nature. So this is the first point that is made today. And this comes through in this beautiful story. The Zen story. The master is a very, very wise person. And many people used to go to him for help. So this one person came to him and said, I really, really want to get rid of my ego. Can you help me? So this master said, okay, I will help you. You come tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the morning. You come. And so this person said, okay, fine, I'll come, but you promise me that you will break my ego. You will dissolve my ego. You will get rid of it. The master said, let's see what happens. I can't promise, but let's see what happens. So this person went, and the master was sitting there, and he told this person, now I want you to sit quietly. Just sit quietly. I want you to go within, and you try to find where your ego is. You try to find it. And when you try to find it, you tell me, and then I will break it. So this person sat down, closed his eyes, and went deep, deep, deep inside. Went beyond the body, but the body was an object of his experience. Went beyond his mind, and the mind also was an object of his experience. Went even beyond the sense of I, because that also was an object of his experience. And he sat for hours and hours, and he kept going in, kept going in, kept going in, trying to find the ego. But as he was trying to find the ego, that very ego dissolved. It dissolved. And when he opened his eye, he said, I didn't tell you anything because there was no ego. So how could you break it? And the master said, that is the answer. There is no ego to break. How can we go to somebody to break the ego, to dissolve the ego? Because there is no ego to break. It itself is an illusion. So that when it talks about this pravesha shruti, that's what it's telling us. That there is no actual ego there. If only we sit down and we quietly go in, go in, go in. This is what Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji tells his students. Go in, go in, go in. We will find that there is no ego to dissolve. How can we dissolve it? This is the first main point. Second main point is that again and again, he will keep saying, Vacharam Bharam. Again and again, if we're trying to figure out the reality of this world, then find out that thing without which nothing else can exist. Find that out. And that clearly is existence. That clearly is awareness. Anything without awareness cannot exist. Anything without existence or awareness cannot exist. And therefore, they are just based on speech. They are just speech. They are just thoughts. They are just things. The true reality is just this existence and awareness. And if we only pay attention to that, interact with the world as we need to, but if we only pay attention to existence awareness, then life will be very peaceful and detached. We might wonder now, so many things are going on, so many things are happening. Why is it happening like this? How do we survive in this kind of world? I read something very beautiful the other day. It said, the grand plan of Ishvara, nothing goes wrong. Means everything happens just as it has to happen. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything. Huh? Everything happens as it has to happen, and we can contribute to the betterment of it, but we cannot control it. And as long as we always remain in that existence and in that awareness and let everything do what it needs to, then we will find utmost peace. Because that is the reality. That is the truth. So this, with these simple mantras, that's actually what he's trying to get to. Okay? More of it, more of how this actually comes into play, more of its connection to existence, we will see next week. For now, let's say the closing prayer, and then if there are any questions or thoughts, we will take them. Okay? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevam Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om.